Foods I'd never buy in the supermarket in 2026. First up is bacon.
Today we're talking ultra-processed foods. You see, what's in our diet and is it killing us slowly?
How they lied to you, supermarket edition. They've been making chemical concoctions under our noses for years and no one seems to be talking about it.
Start off with this loaf of Warburtons. This is being laced with preservatives like calcium propionate, which is being linked to gut disruption and behaviour issues in children. Next.
Did you know we're still eating chemicals that are banned in the UK? Not because UK farmers use them, but because our food is imported.
Why the hell would you trust them to make you fucking shit like this?
UK fruit and veg and the amount of samples that contained PFAs or forever chemicals. Let's discuss.
Now, the American Journal for Preventative Medicine did a study that suggested that 14% extra deaths in the UK could be linked to ultra-processed foods. We think now that over 50% of the foods that UK people are eating are ultra-processed.
How to avoid ultra-processed foods. Simply put, the length of the ingredients list increases the chance of it being an ultra-processed food.
Welcome back to Broken Britain, where even eating now feels like a risk assessment. Because this isn't about dieting, it's not about trends, and it's definitely not about being dramatic. It's about something far more uncomfortable. Food in the UK doesn't feel like food anymore. You pick something up in the supermarket and it looks fine. It's cheap enough. It's everywhere. But then you turn it around, and the ingredients list reads like a chemistry experiment. Additives you can't pronounce, preservatives you don't recognise, ultra-processed products pretending to be normal meals. And slowly, people are asking a question they never used to ask. Is this even safe to eat long term? Because we're not just tired of high prices anymore. We're tired of feeling uneasy about what we're putting in our bodies. So today on Brit Rants, we're talking about the quiet fear no one wants to address. Has food in the UK become more about profit than health? And what does that mean for ordinary people who don't have the luxury of better options? If this feels familiar, subscribe, because we talk about the realities people live, not the slogans they're sold.
How they lied to you, supermarket edition. They've been making chemical concoctions under our noses for years and no one seems to be talking about it. Aside from the long ingredients list, just look at the meat they have stored in this little plastic box and tell me that's real food. You pick up any wrap and tell me why it has this many ingredients inside of it. There's no way food is considered food anymore. The sandwich is my favourite. It literally says in the bottom, contains a bioengineered food ingredient. And no one seems to realise how bad these supermarket foods are getting. And how most of your favourite foods are slowly killing you. That's why I've made the supermarket survival guide in my bio for you to check before the next time you go shopping in one of these deadly aisles. This is the deadliest aisle in the supermarket and you walk through it every single day. There's actually a deadly chemical in all of these deli meats and you don't know about it. If you pick up any packet of bacon, you'll see it has preservative 250 in it. It's in here, it's in this packet of ham and also these sausages among many more food products. The reason they use this ingredient is because it makes the food last longer on the shelf. But when it mixes in with your body, it creates a group 1 carcinogen, meaning that it will give you cancer. Studies have shown that eating only 2 slices of bacon a day can increase your chances of bowel cancer by 18%. I've got a full alternatives guide in my bio, but a quick one I can give you now. If you look for signs saying no chemical nitrite or nitrite free on the labels, then you're good to go.
Your favourite supermarket bread is toxic for you and not for the reasons you think. It stays soft for multiple weeks, not because of its salt, not because of its sugar, but because of the emulsifier they put inside of it. This emulsifier is known as E471. Use it to blend fats with water. But recent studies show that they can ruin your gut microbiome and also cause inflammation. Not to forget that they actually tested this ingredient in a French study in 2022 where they found an increased chance of breast and prostate cancer. A lot of people think that eating healthy and eating clean bread like sourdough toast is a lot more expensive. It's a big luxury, but you have to realise this ingredients list is a lot better than this one. And it's only going to cost you an extra £1, an extra $1 more. Not too much considering the health benefits. Listed a full supermarket survival guide in my bio for you to check so you know what to buy when you next go shopping.
Guys, the government wants you to keep eating shit. And that's why they tell us it's okay, have a balanced diet, you can eat crisps, chocolate, all these kind of things, right? And that has no consequence on your long-term health or even your short-term health or your body composition, right? They will tell you that. Because God forbid that you guys would stop eating all the shit. Imagine, go to the shop, how much processed food is in the supermarket and how much actual good food is in. There's a small aisle for veg, a small aisle for meat, and the rest is shit. Imagine if you stopped eating that shit. What would happen to the economy, right? It would collapse. And the 1% of the people that make all the money in the world, that live on yachts, that have all the stuff, that build in fucking spaceships, right? Fucking go around in jet planes, wouldn't be able to enjoy that life because you're not buying their shit. So it's in the government, in the richest people in the world who control the world, their interest for you to eat shit, okay? So, and the coaches who don't understand this shit,
we're all eating ultra processed foods if you're from the UK. So as you can see, the rest of Europe is looking okay. I mean, like with Germany at 46, Finland at 40, look at Greece at 13, even Italy. But this is when it gets bad. 50.7% of household purchases in the UK are ultra processed. Where's the veggies at, lad?
Did you know we're still eating chemicals that are banned in the UK? Not because UK farmers use them, but because our food is imported. Some pesticides are banned on UK farms, but still used on wheat overseas. And that wheat is imported, processed, and eaten here every day. There are 3 in particular. The first is chlorpyrifos. It's an insecticide. It's been linked to interference with brain development, lower IQ in children, and damage to the developing nervous system. Not just insects, children. That's why it was removed in the UK. The second is triadimephon, a fungicide used on cereal crops like wheat. It's been linked to hormone disruption, birth defects in animal studies, and possible effects on the endocrine system. That system controls growth, puberty, fertility, and how the brain develops. The third is dimethoate. It's been linked to neurotoxicity and damage to the nervous system too. Again, banned for UK farmers, still allowed elsewhere. Now here's the part most people never hear. In the UK, wheat origin does not need to be labelled. So made in the UK does not mean the wheat was grown here. Imported wheat is mainly used in ultra-processed foods, especially when UK harvests are poor or demand is high. Things like packaged biscuits, breakfast cereals, chocolate biscuits, wrapped white bread, burger buns, crackers, frozen pizzas, frozen pies, breaded foods like chicken nuggets. The everyday stuff. This isn't about panic, it's about awareness. Chemicals we decided were too risky to use here can still enter our food through global supply chains.
These are the 3 things in the supermarket I never buy again. Now know the ingredients and what goes in them. One of the first ones is these instant oats that come in a pot. I do get it, they are quick and easy to make, but these are often mixed with artificial flavourings, more sugar than necessary, so definitely avoid these. Just stick with your natural oats, add your own protein powder, and pick up some natural honey to add some more flavour. Second one is these protein yogurts. These are mainly ultra processed and won't fill you up, and this will lead to more cravings. And you can see on the back it's also full of artificial sweeteners. So just swap this out for some 0% fat-free yogurt, add some blueberries, add some dark chocolate, and it's even better. You can see on the back it's absolutely ingredients free. And the last one I haven't eaten in years, crisps. There's actually no real benefit from crisps, especially Pringles. You want to see the ingredients on the back of this packet. It is absolutely full of garbage. Pringles can't even be classed as a crisps anyway. Pringles is one of the top ultra-processed foods in the supermarket. So if you're looking after your health, I'd avoid all crisps and all Pringles. Next time you're in the supermarket, have a look at the ingredients to try and avoid them ultra-processed foods.
How to avoid ultra-processed foods. Simply put, the length of the ingredients list increases the chance of it being an ultra-processed food. So I try to look for single whole food products like Rivita, which only has 3 ingredients, just rye flour and salt, which is amazing. And then what you need to do because not all packaged food is bad, you need to consider the 3 things that are going to be worse for your health. So 1 is added sugar, 2 is added fat if it's a bad form of fat like seed oils, and 3 is added chemicals and additives. So when you come up to something like these veggie thins, out of those 3, it's only got added rapeseed oil, it doesn't have added sugar, it doesn't have added chemicals, so that is a fairly okay processed food that I wouldn't have a big deal about in the process. But then if you come over to Finn's crisps, they've got added mono and diglyceride of fatty acids, so that is a chemical that you wouldn't want, so maybe you want to avoid that one. That's how to look out for it and shop healthier.
Today we're talking ultra-processed foods. You see, what's in our diet and is it killing us slowly? Take, for example, fuel. Protein-boosted granola. But when you look at some of these added ingredients, we're talking glucose syrup, sunflower oil, we're also talking about emulsifiers, things that you won't find on the average kitchen shelf. Now, the American Journal for Preventative Medicine did a study that suggested that 14% extra deaths in the UK could be linked to ultra-processed foods. We think now that over 50% of the foods that UK people are eating are ultra-processed. Never to mind that you have a situation where they're linked to things like sleep problems and anxiety, depression, weight gain, and a whole range of issues that are driving people's health, costing the NHS and the taxpayer billions of pounds every year. And who gets the profit from it? Companies that are able to sell you a packaged good on the idea that it's good for you, even as it's slowly stealing away your health. But what do you think? And if you'd like to learn more, read the caption down below and follow Nova.
You guys have to watch this video that I just came across. Obviously, if you're on my page, you know that I'm not a fan of ultra-processed foods. And as we know, due to lobbying, conflicts of interest, and a whole lot of politics and money, a lot of research just isn't being done on the way that ultra-processed foods are actually affecting us. So this UK doctor decided to do a little experiment. He went from eating his everyday diet of 3 healthy meals to 3 ultra-processed meals every single day. He tested his body before the diet and then after the experiment. And as expected, he ended up eating way more than he anticipated, so way more than 3 meals. And of course, with more calories comes weight gain, but also his hunger cues went up. And then the hormone that tells you that you're full went down. So that was like obviously a deathly combo. But I think this that I'm about to show you, this little clip, is probably the most important part in my opinion.
I'm going to switch from my normal healthy diet, it's pretty healthy. I eat about 20% ultra-processed food to an 80%.
My first meal is a national favourite. Fried chicken. The reason I eat these lasagnas the whole time is because they're tasty. They are really quick. And you've got to admire the science that goes into this. Sort of stringy, cheesy bits. I know I'm going to finish this. With the areas that drive repetitive, automatic behaviour. So eating ultra-processed food has become something my brain simply tells me to do without me even wanting it. Shockingly, this is something you might see in a person with addiction.
So I think this is a big indicator that the more you incorporate ultra-processed foods into your diet, the more you're naturally going to crave it. It's no longer just a case of more discipline, right? This is actually changing our brain. And of course, most people think that they're eating mostly 80-20, but these ultra-processed ingredients that make foods what they are in everything from even perceived healthy items, things that are high in protein and low in fat and low in sugar. And it's actually been shown that 60% of the calories that Americans consume come from ultra-processed foods. So I feel like that just throws moderation out the window. So what do you guys think?
Banned overseas but sold in the UK. You may think that these sports drinks are good for your health, but the truth is a lot more shocking than that. All of these sports drinks have an ingredient called brilliant blue. This colour actually can seep into your blood-brain barrier, meaning that it can seep into your brain and into your bloodstream. Now, it's also been linked to child hyperactivity and could be causing ADHD in kids. This nasty blue chemical is still being sold on our supermarket shelves every single day, and your children are still buying it. There's a lot of other really toxic food chemicals as well, like red 40 and yellow 5 and 6, that they still put in all of your kids' favourite sweeties. I can't fit them all into this one video, but that's why I've made the link in my bio for you to check the Supermarket Survival Guide, full of healthy swaps and better alternatives.
Foods I'd never buy in the supermarket in 2026. First up is bacon. When you cook bacon, it releases a chemical called nitrosamine, which is a group 1 carcinogen. That's in the same group category as asbestos and tobacco. Next up is emulsified bread. The emulsifier E471 ingredient in this French study found links between this ingredient and high risks of cancer. Many of your favourite pastries, sandwiches and butters contain this one ingredient. If your food has this many chemicals, it's no wonder so many people are dropping like flies.
If you want an early grave, get down to Morrison's for your shopping. You're about to find out what's hiding inside the UK's top 5 most popular breads. Let's start off with this loaf of Warburton's. This is being laced with preservatives like calcium propionate, which is being linked to gut disruption and behaviour issues in children. Next, we've got rapeseed and palm oil. These turn into inflammatory fats that wreck hormones and arteries. Next, we've got the emulsifiers. These rip holes through your gut lining. You see that wheat flour they've made this bread with? It's from crops that are being blasted with pesticides before harvest. So what's left isn't just flour, it's chemical pesticide residues. Not only that, they fill this with fortified vitamins. Your body doesn't even recognise these, so it doesn't absorb them. Everything I've just said about that loaf of Warburton's, the same goes for all these loaves of bread as well. A lot of you might think this is a healthier option, but let me tell you about what's hiding in this. As well as lacing this with the usual synthetic vitamins, they've gone further with this and put folic acid in it. Synthetic folic acid stays in your blood unmetabolised, that being linked to potential health issues like higher risks of cancers, immune disruption and vitamin B12 deficiency. There's even a food scanner app now called Ivy, which backs everything that I'm saying about these ingredients with studies to go with it. And get on this, millers and flour producers are required by law to fortify non-wholemeal wheat flour with folic acid from the end of 2026. So do yourselves a favour, don't be letting the law turn your diet into a chemical experiment.
Do you ever check the ingredient list of foods and drinks that you buy? If no, then it is time to be more mindful of what kind of foods and drinks you consume, because these days we are literally surrounded by ultra-processed foods, which can have negative effect on human health. Ultra-processed foods are industrial formulations which are entirely or mostly derived from foods or part of the foods with addition of colorings, preservatives, and sweeteners. So if you look at the ingredient list and you notice that it is suspiciously too long, then most likely you are dealing with an example of the ultra-processed food. Ultra-processed foods tend to be high in calories, salt, sugars, and saturated fats. They're literally designed for you to like them, for you to want to eat more and more, and that is why it's quite dangerous because it can lead to weight gain. What is more, research shows that food additives that are added in ultra-processed foods can negatively affect human microbiome and lead to various gut complications and unpleasant symptoms and other more serious health issues. So keeping this in mind, it is very important to try and look at what kind of foods you are buying and try to prioritize foods that are minimally processed, foods that are whole. Of course, balance is the key, and I'm not going to tell you to never have ultra-processed foods anymore. Occasionally, it is fine, but whenever it is possible, try to choose a healthier option, and your body is going to say thanks.
3 things you should know before buying your favourite sandwich. Number 1, it has sodium nitrite. It's in the Group 1 category list, in the same group that bacon, sausages and salami all have. Group 1 causes cancer. It's as bad as it gets. Number 2, it's got mono and diglyceride of fatty acids. This study proved that this ingredient has links to breast and prostate cancer. And number 3, just common sense. This is not the ingredients list. When it says chicken, mayo, sweet corn, chicken, mayo, sage and onion stuff, this is not what's inside it. This is the ingredients list. No sandwich should have this many ingredients inside of it. Now, I'm not telling you what to eat. You can do what you like. I'm just recommending that you read and understand the ingredients before you buy it. That's exactly why I created the free guide in my bio for you to use, so you know what these ingredients are and you know what they're doing to your body.
If you've recently come across the study in the last 24-48 hours about UK fruit and veg and the amount of samples that contained PFAs or forever chemicals, let's discuss. The Pesticide Action Network has recently analysed the statistics from the government residue testing programme. And what they found is that at least these 10 PFA chemicals were present in food that were destined for our UK supermarket shelves. So what does this mean? Well, the chart that has been published by the Daily Mail as part of their article highlights that up to 95% of strawberries sampled contained these PFAs, followed by grapes, cherries, spinach and tomatoes as the top 5 contaminated foods. Now, does this mean that you cannot eat these 5 fruit and vegetables? Absolutely not. Is it great that we have highlighted that there is a pesticide and chemical residue issue on the fruit and veg that is destined for our ingestion? Absolutely. So for you guys at home, I would say continue to eat them, but where you can, buy organic. And anything that you do buy, bring home and clean with water and bicarbonate of soda, leave it in your sink to soak, and make sure that you get off as much dirt, bacteria and pesticide residue as you can. And enjoy your food.
Did you know the folic acid about to be added to flour is not taken from plants? It's built in a chemical factory, and this is how it's made. Synthetic folic acid is created through industrial chemical reactions. To make those reactions work, manufacturers use powerful industrial solvents. Not food, not nutrients, solvents. Methanol, a toxic alcohol. It can damage the nervous system and cause blindness if swallowed. Acetone, the stuff used in paint removers. Highly flammable, harsh on the lungs and skin. Toluene, a petroleum-derived solvent known to affect the brain, linked to headaches, dizziness and memory problems. Dichloromethane, a chlorinated solvent. Its vapor can harm the lungs and liver. So toxic, it's tightly regulated. They also use strong acids and bases, corrosive chemicals that can burn skin and eyes to force the reactions to happen. After all that, the chemical is filtered, washed, crystallized and dried. Regulations say the solvents should be removed. And from the 13th of December 2026, this synthetic lab-made compound will be added by law to most white flour in the UK. This isn't how humans historically got nutrients. Real folate comes from food. This comes from industrial chemistry. This isn't about panic, it's about understanding what's in your bread. If you want to learn how to eat real food in a modern world like this, that's what the Real Food Club is for. Links in the bio.
This says chicken breast. When you look a bit at the back of it, it says ingredient, chicken. If you can't trust them to make this for you, because what they do is they inject the fucking chickens. The chickens are kept in cages and all of that. You can't trust them to make you this. Why the hell would you trust them to make you fucking shit like this? Because look at this. The first ingredient is chicken. The second ingredient is sugar. And the third ingredient is maltodextrin. Fourth ingredient, corn flour. This shit says chicken breast on it. This fucking shit. I tell you what I'm trying to say. They told us about how bad alcohol was for us. They told us how bad tobacco was for us. It was drummed into us. I know how bad recreational drugs, all this fucking ecstasy, cocaine, I know. If I decide to partake, I know the dangers, but I've made the decision. Why are they not warning us about shit like this? Because in the long run, shit like this actually hurts more people. Eat shit like this every day, it's a fucking slow death. That's why we got 1 in 2 of us will get cancer. That's why colorectal cancer is so high among the young. Because we're eating fucking shit like this. Guys, don't let them lie to you. Buy the fucking raw chicken. I know they fucked with it, but still better than this fucking shit here. Guys, wake the fuck up.
Ultra-processed food is 60% of the average daily food intake in the UK. Not in my house. I make all my food from scratch and I'm going to show you how you could easily do this. I normally do a weekly food shop and I will season all of my meat at the same time. This gives me the freedom to eat whatever I want in a week, knowing that the meat is already prepped. I then move on to prepping my veg. I chop all of the veg at the same time. Here I'm prepping some fresh tomatoes and peppers, which will form a base for 3 meals. I roast the tomatoes and peppers, blend them. This becomes the sauce for minced meat, jollof rice, which I eat with some fish, and finally beef short rib. I slow cook for 3 hours. I continue prepping the veg. Here I'm prepping the base for the beef short rib. I've just showed you how I use it. And then I prep some courgettes, which I will eat with the minced meat for low carb spaghetti bolognese. I peel and chop butternut squash. Then I move on to prepping my immunity juice, which is carrots, ginger and lemon. This takes a little bit more time, but knowing what's in my food is totally worth it.
And we're back to another video, and today we have digestives, Testo, crumbly and crunchy, carefully baked for a dunkable golden treat. So now we have it right here. So we're gonna open this up and show you the preservative food itself. So it says here, see here. But wait, let's have a look at what it says here. The 68 calories and
one biscuit.
That's very bad. And you know what it is? It's ultra-processed food!
Yep, so you see here it says 68 calories for one biscuit.
So let's open it up and see what it is.
If you do the maths, 2 biscuits is
Over 100 calories. Yeah, I'll be the judge of that. Let's see how much calories it can give me. Alright, so here's the biscuit. Looks awfully like a digestive biscuit. It is, actually. But let's just try this one and see how it is anyway, so... Wow! I just consumed 5 calories. That's amazing. So you can see here, one biscuit is 68 calories, and the average adult of calories an adult should have is 2,000. So, I mean, how much is this whole packet? I just consumed 30 calories. Yep, so if you might want to choose a healthy option or just one without too much calories, then I do suggest so, because this is just too much calories. Let's look to the ingredients and see what's actually inside these cookies. And it's palm oil. It's palm oil in biscuits, everyone. There's palm oil in your biscuits. Yeah, so unless you want to eat biscuits with palm oil, then go ahead. Alright, people, I'm almost done eating 68 calories. Well, there we go. I just finished eating 68 calories. It doesn't feel good, guys. It does not feel good. Anyway, bye guys. If you enjoyed the video, I'm sure down below, put a thumbs up and bye. We love food, kill food, and stay away from that food.
In most of Britain, we have a really clear system for working out what the food hygiene standards are like at any given restaurant. It's called a food hygiene rating. If it's a 5, it means that that restaurant was found by inspectors to have really good food hygiene practices. If it's a 0, then you probably want to avoid it. But what if it's a 4? I mean, that's not a perfect 5, so they must have done something wrong. But how serious is it? And what about a 3? It says generally satisfactory, but it's getting a little bit low down the scale. At what point should I not go to that restaurant? The inspections and the ratings are carried out and done by local authorities, but the system itself was designed and is overseen by the Food Standards Agency. So I decided I wanted to go straight to the source and ask them, should I eat at a restaurant that has a 3?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So if you get a rating of 4, for example, what that means is on the day that the officer has done their inspection, they've maybe found some minor non-compliances. So maybe things aren't just as they should be, and they're not an immediate kind of risk to health, but they could be if they're left too long or they're not addressed. The lower you go down the scale, the more non-compliances the inspector has found. So a rating of 3 we see is generally satisfactory. You know, people should be reasonably comfortable eating in a premises of 3 or above. But what our research tells us is that as soon as you drop below that 3 and go into the 2 or the 1 or the 0, you're twice as likely to get ill from the food that you eat.
So that's the word from the Food Standards Agency. A 3 is the lowest number that you should be reasonably comfortable eating at. But I still don't understand, what do these numbers actually mean? What is the real difference between 2 and a 3 and a 4? Well, I dived into the guidelines that they use to actually assign these ratings, and it's pretty complicated. So I'm going to simplify it, but here's what I think you need to know. When an inspector visits a restaurant, they give that restaurant a score in 3 separate categories, which are then combined to work out the food hygiene rating. There are 2 categories about food hygiene, one in terms of the food itself, and one in terms of the environment in which the food is made. And then a 3rd category about the management of the restaurant. Basically, can we trust them? Now for simplicity, I'm going to skim over that last one and focus on these 2, because these are the ones about food hygiene itself. So let's say a business has a perfect food hygiene rating of 5. What that means is that it either got a perfect score across every category, or it may have been marked down in one of the food hygiene categories by a single point, meaning in that category there was a good standard of compliance with only minor contraventions. That's the worst possible result that still gets a 5. Now moving down to a 4, that would mean that at worst, the food hygiene scores were marked down by a single point in both areas. So that's still pretty good. Now moving down to a 3. The worst case scenario here is that food hygiene was marked down by 2 points in both areas. That would mean that there is some non-compliance, but it's not considered significant in terms of risk, although it may become significant if not addressed. What would that look like? Well, I got a hold of some inspection reports. These are the things that actually determine the food hygiene rating. For a food hygiene rating of 3, the report might contain a few isolated issues that are quite concerning, but not disastrous. Things like sausages being left out of the fridge,
Or, during the inspection, it was observed that 2 members of staff handled raw chicken and continued to operate in the kitchen without washing their hands. Yeah, that's definitely not great, but that's pretty much the limit of what you can get away with and still get a rating of 3. But when you get down to a food hygiene rating of 2, that's when everything changes, because for a 2, there would have to be a major non-compliance with statutory obligations in at least one, but possibly both, of the food hygiene categories. At the time of inspection, a moth was found inside a container of black sugar syrup. Plastic tubs containing rancid, foul-smelling beef and liver were found on your premises. A bag of carrots was observed in a cardboard box in the rear storeroom. These carrots had numerous live insects all over them. To be clear, if the inspector thought that these ingredients were being served to customers, they'd shut them down immediately. These ingredients will just have been left somewhere in storage and forgotten about, but yeah, that's still going to get you marked down pretty harshly. Now, as I said, the inspection scheme is really complicated, and there are ways of getting knocked down to a 2 without the inspector seeing any actual food crimes in progress, but the only way to know that would be to get a hold of the inspection report. So if you see a rating of 2, all you can say for sure is that they might have done some wild stuff like this. Whereas if it's a 3, you can say for sure that they didn't. But if 3 is what really matters, then why do we have all the other numbers? Why wouldn't you just have everything below a 3 be a fail, and 3 and above just be called pass? Well, there is a country that does that, and it's called Scotland. They have a totally different system. It's much simpler, and it might be better, or maybe it's worse. Scotland doesn't have food hygiene ratings. They've got their own system going on, and also they're not covered by the Food Standards Agency. They have their own body, which is called Food Standards Scotland.
The Food Hygiene Information Scheme is applied typically where food is supplied, sold or consumed. For a pass, you would be looking at a business that is broadly compliant with food hygiene requirements. So it's very much a kind of yes, no, either or. It may be that there are some minor things that are not a significant risk. However, if those minor contraventions are ones that are not rectified, then it would be improvement required.
Scotland's scheme is way simpler. Instead of a 0 to 5 rating that you have to watch a YouTube video to understand, it's just pass or improvements required. So why did the rest of the UK decide to go with this system that seems so much more complicated?
The idea that there was a 0 to 5 rating was to kind of to drive competition within businesses. You know, it was that idea that if a business with lower ratings had to display it, then, you know, businesses who'd worked really hard and achieved the higher ratings would get a competitive advantage, and our research shows that they do.
Do you remember in the food hygiene rating scheme how some contraventions could happen before you actually get below a 3 and breach that legal minimum standard? Well, under Scotland's system, the argument goes that there would be no incentive for restaurants to try and deal with those contraventions because they'd still get a pass anyway. But Scotland does have one more tool in its arsenal which it uses to try and deal with this problem. It's called the Eat Safe Award.
Eat Safe is basically when you've got a business that has sustained compliance at the highest level. So they're going above and beyond what is legally required, and that's on a sustained basis. Eat Safe is an award that a business can apply for. They can ask to be assessed for an Eat Safe award. It isn't something that's automatic.
So the Eat Safe award is not quite the same as a 5 in food hygiene rating system. It's actually a greater achievement, but that also means it's a lot rarer. But we can understand now why you would want ratings and awards beyond the legal minimum to encourage restaurants to do even better. But what about those low ratings? Why do we need a 2 or a 1 or a 0? Like, if a restaurant's doing that badly, shouldn't it just be shut down?
So the food hygiene rating is the literal shop window of a very complex food hygiene kind of model that sits underneath it. But that officer's primary role is to ensure public safety. So if they go into a food business and they find something that's an imminent risk to public health, something that's going to make people sick, they can and they absolutely will close that business down if that's required. But depending on what they find, their range of enforcement will vary. So they might choose to shut down part of an operation. As I said, they might close the entire business down, or they might work really intensively with that business to put together an action plan to show them how they should address those and coming back until they're content.
I think that's a big thing to understand here. Food hygiene ratings are for the public, but there's a much bigger food hygiene and food safety enforcement system going on behind the scenes that we don't really need to know about. But one thing that both Karen at the Food Standards Agency and Lorna at Food Standards Scotland were keen to stress is that most of these businesses aren't sort of mustache twirling villains trying to poison everyone.
Most businesses don't set out and plan to get into that position. Things happen, and therefore in that situation you tend to find that the majority are quite willing to work with the authority.
Another thing that unites these two schemes, at least in England and Scotland, is that there's a big hole in them. Because in Wales and Northern Ireland, when a restaurant is given a food hygiene rating, they receive a sticker with that rating on. And they have to display that in their restaurant in a place that it can be seen by anyone who goes in there. But in Scotland and England, restaurants receive those stickers and then they're told, we'd really like it if you put this up, but you don't have to. And you might be thinking, well, if a restaurant gets a really low score and they're not required to display it, won't they just put that sticker in the bin? And you'd be right. In fact, the Food Standards Agency conducted research which found that in England, it's extremely rare to find a business with a rating below 3 that actually displays that rating, whereas in Wales, most of them do, because they have to. Introducing mandatory display of food hygiene ratings would require new regulations to be introduced, and the Food Standards Agency can't do that. But I wanted to ask them whether they have an official position on this.
Yes, we absolutely do. We would love to see food hygiene rating scheme put on a statutory footing in England as it is in Northern Ireland and Wales. In order to do that, there's a bit of parliamentary process that we have to go through, and the decision to do that rests with ministers. Even if it's not displayed in the business, you can go on our website on ratings.food.gov.uk and check your rating. It's a simple postcode search.
These days, there are restaurants that don't even have a physical location. They only exist on delivery apps. And I think in those cases, it's more vital than ever that this information be made available, because you don't even have the option of sort of feeling out the vibe of the restaurant. And this has caused some scandals over the years. In 2019, the BBC found that the delivery apps were hosting hundreds of restaurants that had a food hygiene rating of 1. In the years since then, the apps have tightened up their rules. There are 3 big delivery apps in the UK: Just Eat, Deliveroo, and Uber Eats. And in the case of Just Eat, restaurants are now required to have at least a 3 for food hygiene in order to be listed on the platform. Deliveroo and Uber Eats only require a 2. And in Scotland, to be clear, all 3 apps require a pass. But these apps are not legally required in any part of the UK to display these ratings. They've done it voluntarily. But in all cases, they're a bit hard to find. You have to go into the More Info page to actually find the rating. And I bet lots of people don't know it's there. I don't understand why we would go out and spend all this money and do all these inspections and give these ratings out and then just allow them to not be displayed. And statistically, you probably agree with me, because the Food Standards Agency's research has found overwhelming support for requiring these ratings to be displayed both in person and online. So I think this is probably an idea whose time will come. I think the biggest thing I've learned from this is that food hygiene is a lot more complicated than we give it credit for. There aren't just 2 types of restaurant, one with rats and one without. There's actually a spectrum, and there's loads of restaurants in the middle where maybe minor mistakes are being made. It's not a big problem right now, but it could be down the road. Management is cooperative, but it's not clear whether they're going to be able to turn it around. And in those cases, I can understand why it's helpful to have this 0 to 5 rating system to capture that nuance. But at the same time, you really can't beat Scotland's system for just pure clarity. It's so easy to understand, and you wouldn't need to watch a video like this to understand that 3 is the threshold for a restaurant that you should eat at. So anyway, hopefully now that you do know that 3 is the magic number, you understand the system a bit more. And with that, eat safe. What a stupid way to end a YouTube video.
Here's what really scares people, even if they don't say it out loud. It's not just that food is more expensive. It's that the cheaper it is, the less like food it feels. In the UK, over half of the average diet now comes from ultra-processed food. Products designed to be addictive, shelf-stable, and profitable, not nourishing. These aren't treats anymore. They're staples. And when your weekly shop is built around products packed with emulsifiers, sweeteners, and additives, people start noticing patterns: constant fatigue, digestive issues, kids hooked on sugar and salt before they understand what food is. Not because parents don't care, but because real food is becoming unaffordable and inconvenient by design. We're told, just cook from scratch, just make better choices, just read the labels. But that ignores reality. People are time poor, money stretched, exhausted. And when the system floods shelves with ultra-processed options while pricing fresh food out of reach, that's not freedom of choice. That's manufactured dependency. What's worse is how normal this has become. Ultra-processed food is marketed as quick, cheap, family-friendly, convenient. But convenience comes with a cost, and it's not shown on the price tag. It shows up in long-term health, in rising obesity, in growing NHS pressure, in people feeling like their own body is working against them. And here's the part no one likes saying: this isn't an accident. When profit margins matter more than public health, when regulation lags behind science, when responsibility is shifted onto individuals instead of systems, people suffer quietly. This isn't about fear-mongering, it's about honesty. People don't want perfection, they want clarity. They want to trust that what's sold as food actually behaves like food. They want affordability without sacrificing health. They want to stop feeling like every basic need comes with a hidden risk. Because when something as fundamental as eating becomes stressful, society isn't functioning properly. If you've ever stood in a supermarket aisle thinking, none of this feels right, you're not imagining it. You're reacting to a food system that's drifting further away from people and closer to profit. And until that changes, this quiet discomfort will keep growing. Stay aware, stay critical. And if this hit home, subscribe, because on Brit Rants, we talk about the things people feel, but are rarely allowed to question.